Hey everybody, sorry for the little delay here. Just going to introduce today's webcast for you, and that is where we have Robert Brown, CEO of Lumo, and he's going to be sharing his um, his screen soon, hopefully, and so he's going to talk about the human experience as well as how to identify and fix some of the problems that you have going on in your organization. And it's a pretty broad topic. So if I welcome everybody to chat in, keep in mind, Robert's going to be by himself on this one. So you can chat in and in that process, ask questions and run through samples of what it might look like in your instance. But look forward to sharing this with you, and away we go. All right, thanks, Robert.
Yes, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm excited to talk and share with you in regard to what are our biggest problems. What are the things that we don't know? I was talking to a chief people officer just yesterday, and she was telling me, she says, what really keeps me up at night is what I don't know. And it's what I don't know that concerns me, because those are the things that always end up being the biggest problems for me. And so, what are those problems that you are facing within your organization? Are you struggling to attract talent or retain your talent? As they say, the big redistribution this year of people moving organizations, is that one of your biggest concerns? Or is it surrounding, being able to retain talent as you're now transitioning back to work? Are you taking the right actions? One of the things that I'm personally seeing is many organizations are struggling because they're going through that return to work process, but they're not effectively engaging their people in the process to learn and understand where their mindsets are. And so when you create policies in a vacuum, you end up struggling because then they're not aligned with where your people are. And when there's that misalignment, then of course you can actually create a retention problem unknowingly, based on the fact that you're not understanding exactly where your people are and how they're feeling about the return to work. Had a great simple little example of this the other day as well. One of our clients it was an issue surrounding the mask in the workplace, and they're a manufacturing firm, and they were back to work, but they were struggling because they were like, hey, look, we think we should go maskless. In the state that they are in, the governor had said, hey, there's no more need for masks. So they were like, hey, we'll just follow along with that. But it was a very smart move by their chief people officer to say, hey, instead of just guessing, and yeah, it seems reasonable that we should take that step or that action, but why don't we ask our people? Why don't we listen and engage? Because with the platform that we have the ability to quickly ask. I can ask and create a poll in the next few minutes and ask that question. And what they found actually shocked them, because they felt like, hey, everybody's ready to just go back and be without masks. But what they found was over 50% of their organization still had very significant concerns surrounding that. And if they had made that move and enabled that, they would have alienated a significant portion of their workforce. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about making decisions and solving problems, is that, if we look at this, attracting and retaining talent, identifying good and bad leadership, I think it was Gallup that said where you have good and bad leaders, where you're alienating people and causing those retention problems. Well, the great news is that all of these things are pretty simple to solve once you can understand them. DE&I, mental health. These are a lot of the other things that I hear people talking about is, hey, these are the problems we're struggling with. How do we redevelop our culture? Now we're in this new hybrid model. How do we establish that? How do we do this? How do we do that? And there's so much change that's happened. It's understanding how to take actions. Well, one of my favorite statements of all time is that you can't fix what you don't understand. And that's where I share with people all the time that, you know what, solving problems becomes really easy once you understand what the problem actually is and understand it at its root cause. But that's one of the biggest struggles, is that typically we struggle to truly understand that because we don't have a way, especially as our organizations get larger, to really understand them and understand our people. So today, most organizations engage with their people and try to do that, go through that listening process, that active listening process, to gather the human data that they need. It's really simple. We need to ask questions of our people and then listen to their answers, take action based on their answers, and then help our organization to grow. But to do that, one of the problems has been that the traditional method for listening has been this old school, ineffective process called surveys, where they really lack, frankly. Think of the last survey that you did, how much time and effort you spend on it, creating the questions, developing the questions, finally getting them sent out, then pretty much, going department by department or leader by leader to try to get people to fill them out and complete them, and then gathering the comments and listen to them and figure out what they were trying to say. But in the survey, you only get high level insights. You probably got pretty low level participation unless you force people to complete the survey, which is then you don't get that great of data because people just feel like, hey, I just got to get this done. And so I breeze through it. So oftentimes they end up being called the disengagement surveys because we end up saying, hey, we're going to change things. But even if you do, it's 6, 8 months, 12 months down the road. By the time you get to taking actions on something, well, business just doesn't move that way anymore. That's why people are so disengaged with the whole process. My brother-in-law, he works for a large organization, and he's like, oh yeah, we just had to do our annual engagement survey. And I can't even get people to fill it out because they keep saying to me, well, we keep saying the same things. Nothing happens about it. So why would I waste my time spending any of this? In other words, there's a complete disconnect in between, hey, we're providing feedback, but then the company actually taking action. So that's what at Illumo, we love to share the fact that, if you don't have a way to measure and quantify the things that you're doing, if you don't have a way to measure that, then how do you know if any of the things you're doing are actually having an impact on your people? And I ask you to think about that for a moment. Think about the things that you're doing right now and the actions that you're taking. And do you truly have a way to quantify the impact of those actions on the organization? Do you have a needle? Do you have a live way to measure and understand the impact of the things that you're doing, not just before? So what I see a lot is organizations will do a survey and they'll send out a survey. Hey, let's do this before. And then when we're done with this in 6 months, as we take these actions, we'll do a survey and see if we made an impact. Well, don't you think it would be better to, as you're going through the process, listen and learn about the experience, learn about the things that you're doing as you're taking those actions, identifying what you're doing right, identifying the gaps that you have as you're going through the process, and being able to adjust those so that once we get to the end of that process and the initiative that we're working on, that we actually know exactly where we are. And then ongoing, a lot of times companies then 6 months later, you do the survey and then you move on to the next thing. And the whole thing that you just worked on for 6 months became the flavor of the month or the flavor of the quarter. And then it just drops right off afterwards because focus has now changed and moved on to the next thing. That's the struggle. And that, frankly, is why we created Illumo. Illumo was created to help organizations solve this whole problem of getting very little insight from their people in a timely way to be able to impact and take the actions that then drive the ultimate results within the organization. So that's why we Lumo is a systematic way or a systematic process to help organizations drive their business results through human analytics. That's right, real time, live data and insight. And we do this in a very simple way where we help organizations, number one, listen to solve once you truly understand them. But then long term, now we need to be able to measure our progress, not just over a few months, but over time, over years. We need to identify where those gaps are. And so that's why we created Lumo. So we help what we and while we can engage with Slack or Teams or wherever your people live, wherever their most common engagement is, one of the most effective I actually love is simply through a cell phone. Because that simple text, not even an app, nothing to download, nothing to install, nothing to manage, nothing to log into. What we do is we ask a single question every single week to learn and listen about the experience that your people are having at work. Those questions were developed by organizational psychologists to help us understand the human experience at work. What is that complete experience that your people are having? So again, if you're struggling with well-being, well, I can help you identify the core aspects of that and identify the gaps where you're doing great and where you have opportunities to improve. Same thing with DE&I. A lot of organizations are working to try to take some type of action there. And certainly there's all kinds of aspects of DE&I, from the hiring process and talent, bringing in talent into the organization. But how do you know within your organization what's impacting, the different groups within your organization? Well, the only way to know is to ask and to listen and to have those conversations. So again, we ask and engage weekly with your people.